Well, the window for franchise tag players is open, and why Josh Jacobs could get tagged again with the Raiders, Bloom.
Yeah, this is an interesting question because let's face it, if we're looking at the last 5 years of Raiders football, he's probably their signature offensive player. And while Zamir White looked good enough at the end of the season, uh, isn't a better outcome for everybody involved that Josh Jacobs gets a market level deal of maybe 3 or 4 years that allows the Raiders to control the cap hits, spread it out. What are we looking at this year? Sees 240 something million cap, like going up about 20 million, I think. Those are early estimates. So you push the cap pain off into the future and you hope that they can use the tag if they have to push those negotiations. But I don't think a tag is a good outcome for Jacobs or for the Raiders. And we'll see whether the Raiders are turning the corner into building something or still trying to figure out what they're building.
Yeah, what they're building and what they're going to do at quarterback. The running back tag, projected franchise tag, is 11.3 million.
Right.
So okay,
He would be 13 and a half because the one thing that Josh Jacobs
okay,
got,
right, right.
because he didn't play under the tag last year. He actually played under a 11-ish $1 million deal. So 120% of your previous year's salary is the tag number, if that number's above the tag number. So at least he got himself a little extra money if that's the direction the Raiders go.
Yeah, well, the AFC West is thick with
Yeah.
potential franchise tag players because there's Austin Eckler. And one of the most interesting and fascinating things that we haven't even discussed yet on this show, Bloom, and
Mhm.
should be discussed more, especially in fantasy circles, is the impact of Jim Harbaugh on Austin
Right.
Eckler. Does he like Eckler? Is he going to run him into the ground just like he ran every Michigan running back into the ground? How does Eckler respond? Can he stay healthy? And he's a potential franchise tag player for the Chargers now.
And for him, the 11.3 million would apply. What makes this one complicated, like you said, Cease, this is a bit of an unknown, but we do know that Eckler aligns with. I mean, Eckler's not a 3 yards in a cloud of dust kind of running back, but obviously he's going to make your backfield better. And the complicating factor here also, we can go back to Josh Jacobs because who's the GM that's going to make this decision about Josh Jacobs? Tom Telesco. Did Tom Telesco seem into keeping Austin Eckler, giving Austin Eckler what he's worth or what his statistics would say he's worth? No. So we're kind of flying blind here. I think that probably on a to-do list for Jim Harbaugh is figuring out how they feel about Austin Eckler because they do have a window to keep him on the team. And see, the other side of it is if you're Eckler, let's say he doesn't get tagged, okay? What kind of deal is he going to get in free agency? 6 million a year? 5
Right.
million a year? Maybe like a 3-year, $15 million deal with 7 million guaranteed or something like that. So if you're Eckler's camp, I'm wondering if you're approaching the Chargers and saying, "Hey, we're cool with the tag. Tag's okay with us."
Right. And if you are thinking of, I want to join a contender, well, okay, then your price tag is really limited. And I'm thinking of the contenders, and I'm thinking of Austin Eckler as a Raven. Like, okay, I like that idea. Obviously, the Chiefs, the Bills, but the Chiefs and the Bills already have their situation set. And James Cook is like the young Austin Eckler.
Right.
Ravens would be interesting. Don't know about
Right.
the interest, Bloom. I guess maybe that's what the Knights in Indianapolis next week could reveal to me.
Yeah. Well, oh, among other things, this is some Sorry Joe Plus material. Sees you're
Mm,
venturing close to that line. I think that the name. So really, we're turning this franchise tag talk into a 2024 offseason running back player movement talk because I think the name that comes up with the Ravens is Derrick Henry. So that's one to watch. And obviously, stylistically, they're completely different running backs. Completely different running backs. But I do want to just go back real quick and put a point on a sharper point on this. Austin Eckler, remember, he was a UDFA. Do you remember the contract that he signed? Do you remember what the terms of the contract were that he signed with San Diego? Maybe they were San Diego then, Los Angeles Chargers.
wasn't much.
No, like 4 years, 24 million.
Yeah.
So an $11 million franchise tag for Austin Eckler this year would represent about half of his career earnings. So this is that rare case where we say, hey, a tag the player might be pushing for the tag. But again, the Chargers, hey, maybe Jim Harbaugh likes Derrick Henry. DeAndre Swift is out there. So there are other Josh Jacobs we talked about. So there are other running backs. And in the background of all this, Cease, terrible. Well, I don't want to say terrible. That's bad. Compared to most running back classes, I mean, is there even an instant impact running back in this class on your first pass through it?
No.
Yeah. So teams that want to get better at running back right now, these are your choices.
Right. These are the guys you'll be looking to. And if you're the New York Giants, you may be looking for a new quarterback or an upgrade or someone that can push Daniel Jones, but you're also looking at Saquon Barkley. Again, I feel like this is Groundhog's Day.
Yeah.
Jacobs, Barkley. So let's talk about Saquon and the franchise tag again.
Yeah. Why does it feel like he's just going to remain a giant on the tag or some quasi tag 1 year deal, and we're going to remain in Groundhog Day with him, including injuries and the quality of the offense or quarterback play seemingly holding back what Barkley can do? We saw him as that franchise level running back so much ahead of the pack, worth a top 5 pick, which is almost unheard of now in the NFL. But he only really achieved ceiling peak Saquon Barkley for very short periods of time. It didn't sustain. So lukewarm. We're just feeling lukewarm. And I think even Barkley understands that he's not going to break the bank. It may be, Cease, maybe there is a team out there thinking we could unlock Saquon Barkley. We can make Saquon Barkley into the player that was worthy of a top 5 pick at running back. But without that, I think we're probably looking at, it's kind of like at the end of the night, who's still around? The Giants, Barkley. Well, let's spend another year together.
All right, let's go home. And let's go off running backs. We have non-running backs to talk about, Bloom,
Yeah.
including Mike Evans. We're talking about him a little bit off air and and discussing Mike Evans, it's always like, I don't want him to go anywhere. Maybe the tag, but maybe Baker Mayfield. Again, discussions we've had before.
Yeah. Uh, Certainly. Well, the one last point, I couldn't remember one of the names. Tony Pollard is out there too. Speaking of franchise tags for
Oh,
the,
I'll get to him in a little bit. But
he's
anyway,
not going to get tagged. He's not going to get tagged. I don't think the Cowboys would tag him, but he's another one of those names as teams are figuring out what to do running back. Mike Evans, what a resounding bounce back year for him. You know, if you if you couldn't see the quarterback, okay, and you spliced clips of 2023 Mike Evans in with like 2016 Mike Evans, could you tell them apart? Right?
no,
He
no.
was that good. I mean, he's no sign of decline. And wide receiver's the premium position, right? Running back, I mean, at least running back gets a little bit of a boost this year because it's not a good class for instant impact running backs. But wide receiver, we're going to see 3 go in the top 10, 2 maybe in the top 4, top 5. And teams are going to also be looking at, see, wide receivers going to be the position like, wait until you see Gabe Davis's contract. What? $17 million a year or whatever. I mean, wide receivers get overpaid based on the scale that continues to go up. So for Mike Evans, an open market Mike Evans could demand what, 25 million a year, 27
Hmm.
million a year, something
Yeah.
like that. So while I understand how the Bucks could tag him, the other thing that we're going to talk about here, and the Bucks, maybe the most fascinating franchise tag questions are the teams that have 2 players that are franchise tag candidates.
Right. Right.
The other, in this case, being the Chiefs with L'Jarius Sneed and Chris Jones. So I think that we saw this last year with Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley. And while they successfully kept Jones and Barkley, it didn't turn into success for the long-term health of the team or even 2024. So I think that these 2 decisions are interrelated to the point where Evans may have some sway over the front office of whether they're going to keep Baker Mayfield and give him a $36 million franchise tag or otherwise commit to him the same way the Giants committed to Daniel Jones last year, a 2-3 year commitment. So I think Mike Evans holds all the cards here. Mike Evans, coming off of that season, he is one of the players that even if he does get a franchise tag this year, we're looking at, because of the wide receiver pay, a very high number. I don't have the number offhand. I imagine it's north of 20 million. We could talk about this when we get to T. Higgins too.
Right.
So So, good on Mike Evans,
20.7 million.
20.7 million, a 1 year, $20.7 million deal. Because Mike Evans, unlike Austin Eckler, I don't have Mike Evans' career earnings off the top of my head, but he was a first round pick, and he was able to get a second contract commensurate with his value, as opposed to what happened to Austin Eckler, who continued to outproduce the paltry amount of money for the production that he gave. So I think that's just where we say, all hail Mike Evans. We worship you at the altar
Yes.
of wide receivers.
We love you. I still remember when he was making fun of me at the Indianapolis airport because I was snoring, and he was sitting next to me. It was when we were flying back, honestly. So yeah, I've always loved Mike Evans, as everyone knows, and Michael Pittman. Let's
Yeah,
stick with the Mikes.
yeah,
Also potential franchise, and hell, let's throw in T. Higgins as well
yeah.
because we've got some impactful wide receivers to discuss.
Well, the Michael Pittman one, I think, is pretty straightforward. I think he's probably going to get tagged. I think that he's going to be okay with that, and I think the Colts are willing to make that commitment. And maybe this could be one of those situations where once he's tagged, then they get deeper into negotiations after free agency, after the draft. I'm not sure exactly what the Colts policies are about when they negotiate extensions and things like that. But I think that Pittman's going to be a member of the Colts. I would say, Cease, of all these players we're talking about, he's close to the most certain to be with his team next year. Uh,
Gladly as well.
yeah,
Not any sort of like we're taking this to mid July type thing.
right. And yeah, not in a way that, because what's going to happen with these wide receivers is now we get to T. Higgins. Uh, I think that the Bengals have another pretty good wide receiver, right? He's going to want to get paid too, right? So the T. Higgins decision is really a Jamar Chase decision, unless you want to have $50 million a year tied up at wide receiver. Now, this is a different Bengals franchise than the pre Joe Burrow, because the pre Joe Burrow, we'd say they're both going to walk, right? They probably aren't going to be smart enough to trade them. You know, they'll take a comp pick. But I think that the T. Higgins decision is a Jamar Chase decision. I think you could run it back with Higgins under a franchise tag $20 million deal. But when you look at how they drafted Yoshevich last year, who did get on the field and make some plays at the end of the year, you look at how they drafted Charlie Jones last year, who is a replacement for Tyler Boyd. I think the Bengals have a deliberate plan here, and I would expect that Higgins is not tagged and probably ends up being, once all the tags sort themselves out, the most coveted free agent.
Mm. Coveted at the tight end position is Dalton Schultz, as I sound like Yoda there, Bloom. But this is one of the most fascinating ones. And I believe there was an earlier report about Schultz wanting to stick around,
Yeah.
wanting to make things work. Well, maybe they'll put a pin in it by just putting the tag on him.
And this is another one where running back is not the only position that, because the salaries are so depressed around the league, the franchise tag salary is reasonable. What is it, about 12 million, I think, 1 year. We've seen this. We saw it with Evan Engram. We've seen this with other tight ends where they'll get the tag and it's actually,
12.05 million, by the way.
yeah. So that's reasonable. That's reasonable. Brevin Jordan came on and did some stuff at the end of the year. But I would think, with the momentum the Texans have, you want to run it back. You want to do everything you can to keep this team together. And this is another one of those situations where a franchise tag actually makes sense for both sides. And for fantasy football, year two, I have to think. I heard Tank Dell is going to start running like what, April, something like that.
Yeah.
So that's good. I mean, we know that ankle injury. If we can just get him back out there in OTAs, we're feeling good about that. Nico Collins, the Texans, heck, they're a team that has options. They could spend on another wide receiver if they want to. They could draft another wide receiver if they want to. So the mission is clear. It's building around CJ Stroud. It is, speaking of windows, as a playoff team, as a division champion, the window is definitely open for them. And you want to keep that window open by keeping the players that rift with Stroud. Schultz was one of them.
Yeah, definitely one of them. Bloom, we probably could have started the show with this guy, as we'll wrap up today's show with this guy. His name is Kirk Cousins.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, the reason I didn't choose you, Bloom, but the reason I didn't choose Kirk Cousins is like, Well, I don't know what's gonna happen with Kirk Cousins. I don't know where he's gonna be. And yeah, could Minnesota keep it together? Sure. But if you're Kevin O'Connell, after another year of I've seen the future, Kirk Cousins will be good and they will fail to get to the postseason or fail once they're in the postseason. That's Kirk Cousins. That's who he is. My grandmother would say that's just his way. Does Kevin O'Connell want that? You know what I mean?
Right, right. No, this is Cease, I think you're right to say that the Kirk Cousins question, and this is what we love or what I love about the offseason is teams can't lie. Their actions tell you what they think is important, right?
Right, right.
You do what you think is important. And you have the Kevin O'Connell, you have this new regime, you have the analytics-based GM. You had a GM that I believe kept a lot of the scouts, et cetera, from
Mhm,
the previous regime.
mhm.
George Payton was part of that, right? Uh, uh,
Not in
eh,
Atlanta. Well, in Minnesota, yes,
yeah,
yes,
yeah,
Minnesota, yeah.
the previous regime.
Yeah.
So what's the plan, Vikings? Where are you? Do you think you're just a couple? I mean, we could bring up Danielle Hunter here, who cannot be tagged. I was incorrect yesterday. He actually got as part of his 1 year deal last year that he cannot be tagged. So the clock is ticking for them. What's your plan? Where is this all headed? Because Kirk Cousins, see, if you're looking for a Tom Brady, Matthew Stafford, we are a quarterback away. That's Kirk Cousins. Now, it may not actually play out that way in reality, but a team like an Atlanta, Pittsburgh, they're not going to get Kirk Cousins. But these teams that look at all of what they have built and think if we just had a quarterback, we would be right there. Kirk Cousins is that guy. However, I would say at this point, it's almost the opposite of the Washington situation, right? Because the Washington situation was something where Kirk Cousins, and you could see it, you like that, he was playing, he was doing everything that he needed to do to be able to be the master of his destiny, and Washington wasn't letting him do it. And that's why that breakup was not a good breakup. It was not an amicable breakup. I think we're at the other end of the spectrum here where I would guess that Minnesota would go to Kirk and say, "What do you want? What do you
Mhm.
want?" I think he's from the
Right.
Georgia. I think he lives in the Georgia area. I could be wrong. I mean, he's from Western Michigan, but do you want to stay with the Vikings, or do you want to explore free agency? And I think that really this is one of those situations where it's not the team's psychology that we're looking to here. It's Kirk Cousins' psychology. And look, I know Kirk Cousins is someone we dunk on, right? Kirk Cousins is, I mean, kind of stands out among the quarterback personalities, right? Is there
Mhm.
another quarterback you can think of like Kirk Cousins or has come
Well,
before?
I think of who else we dunk on, like Russell Wilson, because it is a Broncos
Sure,
show.
sure.
While he's a Bronco for another week. Anyway, Cousins is his teammates love him.
Yeah, he's well,
Like, love him. I know his best friend. His best friend's Tyler Columbus. Like,
right,
the teammates love and
right.
adore him, like,
When you
forever and ever and ever.
and you bring up Russell Wilson because I think the word that you would use to describe both these guys is corny. They're corny
Cheesy.
dudes. They're
Mhm.
cheesy dudes. But Cousins is genuine.
Yes,
Cousins is
yes.
really a genuinely cheesy, corny dude.
Russell's awkward.
Yeah.
Just no matter the company he keeps, he's just
Yeah.
awkward.
Yeah. And Matt Waldman spoke into existence that he's going to be the next quarterback for the Steelers. Bleh.
I think Matt did that on purpose.
They're not going to like him in Pittsburgh. I mean, the people, the Pittsburghers.
Mhm. Well, not if he's rolling around talking about his 2 butlers. How's that go over in the Still City, right?
He just needs to drink, like, split a case of beer with Mike Tomlin in Tomlin's driveway with all the people that live on the block, and then they'll like him.
You know, I was talking, had a conversation at the Senior Bowl with Parker Gabriel, shout out Parker, and Andrew Mason, of course. And we're like, you know what Sean Payton needs? He needs like one of those like drunk nights with just some of us reporters where we're like, yeah, we're all aloha. Sorry, Joe. But I
Yeah,
see that aloha side of you. You see the aloha
yeah,
side of me. And it's just one of those shared
yeah.
moments.
Well, that's the Pittsburgh way, and it's the way down here in New Orleans too, where it's no BS. Sorry, Joe. I am who I am. This is how we are on the show, right? We are who we
Mhm.
are. You're either
Right.
gonna like us or not like us. Please like us. You're gonna like us or not like us. You're gonna like, comment, subscribe. You're gonna share. You're gonna do all that stuff or not. But I am who I am, and I'm not gonna try to make you think. My mother taught me that. Don't try to make people think things about you. They see who you are. Just be who you are, and the
Mhm.
people who like you, the people that you drive with. That's who you surround yourself with, and the people that don't. That's okay. If you're a real person, not everybody's gonna like you, and that's okay. But yeah, I think that Sean Payton, maybe Cease, I think he might have come up with like this new wonderful thing, like therapy for the beat writers. It's just once a year, all the beat writers and the coach. I mean, they could do other things. Doesn't have to be alcohol, but things where you
Right. We used to go
relax.
to Mike Shanahan's house.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, as a press group, we would be invited to
Right.
go to Mike Shanahan's house.
Right. Which shows an intimacy. It shows a sense of
Right.
shared fate or shared space. And I don't think that's what Sean Payton has created. So yeah, let's start this campaign, and we just need to find out. I mean, he was down at Mardi Gras the year he said, "Find me on the neutral ground on Napoleon," and there he was. So man knows how to have a good time. I've seen some videos of him dancing out there. So maybe that's a dance party. Sean Payton, beat writer, dance party.
I've seen him hit a water pipe. Anyway, let's wrap up today's show with that. He's Sigmund Bloom. Follow him on Twitter at Sigmund Bloom. The show is at the Audible. I'm at Cecil Lammey saying, thanks for watching, everyone. We appreciate you. Stay tuned. And would you please stay frosty?